This is the second evaluation training session. Today's session will focus on developing teachers through coaching. Before we focus on the tools for developing teachers, we want to just do a brief review on session 1 from earlier in the fall of 2019. This was training that was presented by Jimmy Adams. Just a reminder to all of our evaluators of our certified personnel that each one should have a working folder for that employee in their building. And you can see on the screen some of the things that can be included in that working folder. Not all of these things, most of these things will not ever end up in the employee's personnel file, which is stored at central office. But this working folder stays on site and obviously provides additional documentation of the feedback and the things that that employee is working on in their teaching. Also remember the cycles for a tenured teacher. It is a 3-year cycle under normal conditions. They will only receive that summative after 3 years, but a non-tenured teacher will receive a summative evaluation annually until they become a tenured teacher. As far as observation conferences go, the pre-observation conference is not required. If the teacher or the evaluator requests that, obviously it takes place. You can see the timeline being 1 to 3 days. It does not have to occur in person. It can occur electronically as well, over email or some other fashion. But the post-observation conference must be held. It must be held within the 5 school days in which the evaluatee is in attendance at school. If that 5-day window doesn't allow for the post-observation conference to be held, a new observation will have to be held for that employee. So make sure that you abide by the 5-day window for post-observation conferences. A couple reminders for classified staff, and you can see a lot of dates, probationary evaluations, and the ending of the year as well. So for probation, you can see the evaluations take place on a 30, 60, and then 90-day window. Very important that those evaluations are provided to the employee as a new hire on probation. We're needing to get them released from that probation status for them to get all of the days that they would have otherwise as an employee. To clarify, there is a probation reference for a reassignment in a classified position, but this works a little differently. The only reason they receive an evaluation after 45 days if there's a problem with their performance in the new position. After 90 days, they do receive an evaluation for that new position. So just again, be aware of those dates as well. And then at the end of the year, you can see that it states no later than 5 days before the end of the year to provide them a performance evaluation. The best practice recommendation is to try to wrap all of those things up by May 1st so that you will not have to worry about meeting those timelines. And then you can see the evaluations with at least 5 years. It happens at least every 3 years, so long as they're receiving satisfactory ratings on those evaluations. So, brief overview of our session. These are strategies that were initially shared by Mike Rutherford. You may know them by some different names. None of these are evaluative. They are all based on providing feedback to teachers to improve their practice through a coaching method. And there are a variety of methods that we're going to be sharing with you on this recording. Some of them may take very little time. Some of them may be a little bit more involved. To help you as we go through this process, there is a document called 7 Tools for Developing Teacher and Teaching. And we want to make sure that you go ahead and print that out. It provides an opportunity for you to take notes on some important points and also some follow-up questions. And we will encourage you to pause this recording as we go through each of the teaching tools to allow you time for that reflection. So the first one is 30-second feedback. And this is basically a professional compliment. This is based on a specific walkthrough or very short observation, but you are simply providing them one piece of information that is positive reinforcement of instruction. So it's really key that this does not become a personal compliment or affirmation, but instead that you affirm both their teaching decision and its positive effect on learning. Kind of a format, when you did this and what the teaching strategy was, the effect was this, and how that impacted students. So kind of following that format. It's something that you can share in person. I think it's very important if you are doing this in person that you are mindful to let your teacher know that you're sharing this one item with them. If there are other things that they want to discuss, you'd be glad to meet with them. But a lot of times teachers may assume that even though you gave them this compliment, that there was a lot of stuff you wanted to say that you didn't. And you want to make sure they know that you are simply reinforcing something you saw specifically in their classroom that was positive and that was good, and that clearly we don't use this as a method of correction. At this time, if you would pause the recording and reflect on the important points of 30-second feedback. Now moving on to 5-minute feedback. So at this point, you've done a brief observation, and you're now going to engage the teacher in a brief dialogue over a specific instructional practice that you saw. Once again, we're not focusing on personal affirmation so much as something you saw in the classroom that you really appreciated and how they did it. So at this point, we're going to start with something to let them know that you appreciate seeing them. That's the cushion. I enjoyed being in your classroom today. It's always great to see what your students are doing. And then specifically, I wanted to talk to you about, and this is the teaching piece, you ask students, for example, to draw a Venn diagram. So you're now linking in a specific teaching strategy that they used in the classroom. Sometimes with this strategy, the teacher may not know specifically that what they were doing was good teaching. And so you're actually going to potentially help to link the activity you saw them do with how it ties into a principle. So the principle in this case would be, this is a mental model approach. So you're letting them know that how the Venn diagram was used, what type of approach that was. They may know it, they may not. You're reinforcing or maybe providing new information. And then from there, linking into the learning as far as why this is good for students. Venn diagrams help students to see relationships. Venn diagrams help students to see things visually. And I saw your students really grasping the concept as you work through this. That's the learning piece. That could lead into a short discussion with the teacher of maybe other mental models they're using, and then finishing with wrap up. And that's an upbeat finish. Mental models like you used today are really working for you. Just keep doing that. You can see from the bullets below, it's a short dialogue. You can definitely use it to address a missed opportunity, and you want to focus it on applying the strategies that have been learned. At this time, we would ask you to pause the recording again to reflect on both the important points and follow-up you might need about conducting 5-minute feedback with your teachers. And this will be the end of part 1 of this session.